Back when I started Deadeye, I knew I wanted to innovate the barbecue game. Since day one, we've offered a premium barbecue product unlike anything else on the market. Great Aunt Irene had something special tucked away on a recipe card in her cupboard, and there was no way we weren't going to do something about it. So we decided to take it one step further, introducing Deadeye Superfood Barbecue Sauce. We've got 5 new flavors: Graviola, Acerola, Pink Guava, Acai, and Dragon Fruit. They're the first of its kind, and they're packed with flavor. Find it at your local grocer today or at deadeyebbq.com.
This podcast contains material that is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all listeners. Enjoy.
To whom it may concern, my thoughts just before the first real college game of my life. The honor of my race, family, and self is at stake. Everyone is expecting me to do big things. I will. My whole body and soul are to be thrown recklessly about the field tomorrow. Every time the ball is snapped, I will be trying to do more than my part. On all defensive plays, I must break through the opponent's line and stop the play in their territory. Beware of mass interference. Fight low with your eyes open and toward the play. Roll back the interference. Watch out for cross butts and reverse end runs. Be on your toes every minute if you expect to make good. Jack.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Old Man Strength, a podcast of the Tailgate Society and brought to you by Deadeye Barbecue Sauce, the best damn barbecue sauce in the known universe. You can find them on the web at deadeyebbq.com. You can find us on the web at thetailgatesociety.com, as well as on Twitter at strength_old. I am Tim Johnson, joined as always by Chris Shipley. Chris, how are we doing this evening?
Doing wonderful. How are you guys?
You know, I'm hanging in there. It's been a busy couple of weeks. We've been back and forth between like 7,000 degrees heat per day to we had like one day where it was only 70, but then it jumped back up to 90 degrees today and it was miserable. I had to change my shirt like 3 times today. But you know, hanging in there, visual. I guess.
I don't need that visual.
I was very slowly and seductively changing my shirt, Chris. You can just picture that.
Slowly and seductively. Hey, I'm glad I'm here tonight. This is
the guest.
Yeah, this is what I was expecting.
Pre-apologize for that content.
Oh,
yeah, the weather's been crazy. I got a new flat top griddle for Father's Day.
Oh, you did end up getting that?
I did. So, and I've been super stoked. So, of course, the entire week I've been making stuff on it. And yesterday I got home and it was kind of raining. And I was like, shit, all I did was buy stuff to make on this grill. I don't have anything to make in the house. So I checked the weather and there was like a 45-minute window in there where it wasn't raining. And I made dinner on it really quick and I was getting ready to clean it and it started raining and started hailing and it was hailing on me and I was out there trying to clean the grill and Caitlin's out there videotaping me. So unfortunately there's a video of me out there trying to finish cooking with hail hitting me, pelting me with my new grill. It was pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, but I'm the guest, but I will say, the fact that you were still out there, that's amazing. I would be out there too. I have my flat stone as well. I make fried rice on mine and breakfast. You can make anything on that. Smash burgers. So yeah, I feel your pain.
She's like, you are ridiculous. I was like, listen, I thought I had a 45-minute window there. The radar looked clear.
Well, perfect. Well, George has already kind of chimed in here. I'm very excited to have him, but Chris, I will go ahead and let you introduce our guest for this evening.
Yeah, man, we are super stoked to have George Trice on the podcast tonight. He is running the foundation of the Jack Trice Legacy Foundation, which is a scholarship fund, and former Iowa State graduate, and of course, legacy of the great Jack Trice. And we are super stoked to have you on, George. We appreciate you coming on. Thanks for hopping with us.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Glad I can make it, and I like what you all are doing. I mean, I've been trying to start a podcast myself, but I think you stole my name. I love the Old Man podcast. That is, that's like that I talk about basketball, the old man game. We still can hit that shot as long as we're in a set spot. We're not running, we're not jumping. Just give us the ball in our spot, and we perfected it over the years. So I feel you. I like it.
Yeah, that's right. We had Marcus Pfizer on about a month and a half ago. And Marcus was talking about how he plays still against his kids, and I was like, "Can your kids take you yet?" And he's like, "No, I can still shoot. I can still sit out there and range shots. I just can't athletically compete with them, but I can still beat them." So kind of the same deal.
Yep.
Yeah, man. I realized a long time ago that I was far past my athletic prime. And then just this past weekend, I was just going for a walk around the neighborhood and I sprained my ankle and I was miserable for like 2 days. So literally just going for a walk already is too much for me. So I should maybe not play any sports whatsoever.
We don't recover well at our age. We do not.
No, we don't. We don't. That is for sure.
I played golf last week in a cart for 4 hours. I came home, I had to take a nap.
And that's fully acceptable. That's acceptable. Don't apologize for that one.
No, I was recharging. That's what my old man used to say. I'm just resting my eyes. I'm not really taking a nap.
I love it. Well, George, again, welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. I want to give you a second to maybe just tell our listeners a little bit about you. So, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, again, thank you for having me on here. And I will talk about, being born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. So I'm back in Columbus now, but I was born and raised in Cleveland. And Cleveland is the city. So I always have to say that whenever I talk about Cleveland. Came to Iowa State. I actually got recruited to Iowa State, and Gene Smith was part of that. And now he's at Ohio State. So I keep in touch with him every once in a while. But when I say recruited, I never played it down. The guys were too big. They were the linemen were 6'7", 370. I was 300, 6'2". That wasn't going to work. But it ended up going out to Iowa State, and even though I was there for a span of 7 years, I did not go there to get a doctorate. I actually, took some time off and moved to California. Thought I wanted to be a chef. And then I came back when California, I couldn't afford it. So came back and got my degree at Iowa State. And, I loved Iowa. I lived in Iowa for about 10 years. And I rep Iowa State, to the fullest, especially with the relationship of Jack Trice being a cousin of mine. Moving across the country over the past, 15 years. I've been with Nationwide Insurance for 15 years in Iowa, in California, and Arizona. My roots in Iowa State, I started the alumni chapter in Sacramento. I work with the alumni chapter in Phoenix, and now I'm the president of the alumni chapter in Columbus. And so working with the alumni, working with the university has always been great. And then the love that I got at Iowa State, being a relative of Jack Trice, but just, being able to go there, experiencing what Iowa was. People say, what do you do in Iowa? The same thing you do in any college town. You could find something to do. But it's where I grew up and became an adult there, living there from 18 to 28, in Iowa. That was a great experience for me. So that's really the background of me. I was the first Trice to go to school in 75 years from the lineage of Jack Trice and that family side. So when I came into Iowa State in 98, I was actually the first one in 75 years. And didn't really know much about Jack Trice and had to do my research. But the first time I heard of Jack was when I was 8 years old. My grandfather and my Uncle Chester and my Uncle Nelson, they were actually flown out to Iowa when the statue was going to be revealed. and I was 8, had chickenpox, so I couldn't go. So I was really the only Trice around that time that really didn't go with the other family members. And learning from that and that experience of what they experienced, and it was in the Jet magazine. So I still have copies of the Jet magazine from '88 when they were out there in Iowa. And so that's kind of where I got that first initial push. And then learning more about Iowa State, I will say that Michigan was the only school I was going to go to. And then I ended up, Iowa State came through, and it actually was a better opportunity for me to go there. But then finding my lineage and finding my connection to Jack Trice, and being warm welcome to Iowa, especially being not from there, not from anywhere near there, but it was a good experience.
Did the average student that was there with you kind of make the connection as to who you were in the lineage there? And was that something that kind of hard to live up to, do you think?
I will say like the story of my sophomore year is, so I used to do the STARS program, and I would actually give tours to young kids coming through in third grade, second grade, give them a tour of the Jake and of the statue out there. And I would do some of the panels for incoming freshmen. So I would be on the panels for parents and students that were coming to learn more. And of course, they have the banner with your name sitting in front of you. The first question asked is not about Iowa State. It's about, hey, George, are you related to Jack Trice? And that's where the conversation went. So it was, I had the best of both worlds. I was able to fit in with the athletes because when I was recruiting to come here, I met and stayed with the athletes in the dorms to get a sense of what they went through playing on the field. But I was also a student, so I didn't have to go through the two-a-days and beat my body up like they did to get the perks. And I could actually be a student. And so I tried not to use my last name. And I had a lot of friends that wanted to use my last name because they helped us to get access. And so my friends used my last name more than I did. But I was on the front page of the Ames Tribune and the front page of the Tribune, the Ames paper. And so people would know who I was out there at Iowa State. So I couldn't really hide it. I just tried to just really play in a corner. I just wanted to blend in and fit in and just see what I could get. But when I wanted to use my perks, I did use my perks.
I don't blame you. I grew up as someone that knew that as Cyclone Stadium, and then it was eventually Jack Trice Field at Cyclone Stadium, and they still took a while before they actually turned around and named the stadium after your cousin, that they just had left it as Cyclone Stadium, which was a weird kind of vague thing anyway. But you were probably there, I guess, when they made the change from Jack Trice Field at Cyclone Stadium to actually Jack Trice Stadium, right?
No, so that's where I got my reintroduction to Jack Trice. That was 1997. That was my senior year.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
Jack Trice graduated from East Tech High School in Cleveland, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And that's where my mom and all my aunts and uncles went. So they went to East Tech High School, same high school that Jack went to. The next year is the 100th year anniversary of Jack graduating from high school, 2022. But my football coach from high school, every morning I would go, he was an English teacher. Every morning I would go into his room and just sit with him before class started. And then my class was across the hall. And he actually gave me the paper. It was on the sports section of the Cleveland Plain Dealer. And they were talking about the fact that they were going to rename the stadium to Jack Trice Stadium and move the statue out to that area, because the statue when my uncle and grandfathers were out there, that was in the center of campus and where it is today. And so that was my senior year. So as that time went on is when I found out about it, because I came out for my visit. I was flown out in February of 98, it was still like near the end of my senior year. And that's when I actually committed, was in February of 98. And I graduated that May. And so it was humbling. I was there at one of the basketball games in February. And one of the things I'll always remember about that, it was two things that was very impactful for me. I was announced on the big screen. So I was there with the vice president provost at the time, Tom Hill, and Jeske was down there. Went to meet with Jeske and Gene Smith when they were at the game. But one of the ushers was an older white gentleman, and he came up and he sat next to me when they announced me. And he sat there and told me who he was. And I'll never remember his name. I was a young kid, was watching the game, but he played with Jack, and he sat there and talked to me at that time, and I learned about the history of Jack from him more than I had anywhere else, just by sitting with him during half of a game. And then when I left that game, as I'm walking with the vice president and my mom, we're walking down, everybody's giving me the thumbs up and waving, and it just was that inviting feeling. But that was my senior year that they renamed the stadium and moved the statue.
Very
interesting.
Cool. Yeah,
I'll bet that was surreal to talk to him.
It was, because for one, it'd been 75 years. So this guy was in his early 90s, and still kicking it, and just just one of the ushers there, showing people when to do something, was an Iowa Stater to the core, and to sit there and talk to somebody. Years later, I probably about 4 years ago, I actually touched the jersey of the captain that helped carry Jack off the field.
Oh, wow.
So I've touched the 100-year moth-bitten jersey. I know the person who has that, and he's kept care of it. And I've actually been able to physically touch that, and to learn the history, and to see some of these artifacts that I had never seen before and never knew existed. That was a surreal part. Like, man, it's getting real. Like, this is the real deal right now.
Would have never dawned on me that somebody would have something like that. What a cool piece of history to have preserved.
Yeah, we've been working, trying to get some of this stuff into the sports wing of the Smithsonian African American Museum of Art out in DC. And just trying to figure out how to get some of this memorabilia from that era showcased. And he's been doing a good job trying to follow up. He spent a lot of his money and time to get some of these things. And so I'm hoping that he can recoup some of that, and people get some some enjoyment out of it, because it's amazing to see that. And again, it'll be 100 years in 2 years, and to still be around and preserved, where it actually is, it still has bloodstains on it. Like,
sure.
Wow.
It's never been washed. It's just 100 years old, and it's a onesie. It was funny because it's a onesie. It's like most people don't know that it's a onesie, and so it's pretty sweet when you say, "Hey, they played in onesies." So it was cool.
I had no idea it was a onesie. That's kind of
yeah. It buckled underneath.
Sure.
It had snaps.
Well, that couldn't have been comfortable.
Nothing they wore probably was comfortable.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
A leather helmet.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. And like you said, here in about 2 years, we're going to reach the 100th anniversary. One thing that has been really neat as Iowa State's football has kind of come to new heights, to a new prominence that they've never had before, is they're getting more national attention, a lot more national games. And so you're hearing the Jack Trice story told all over again, and with a new lens and to a national audience in a way that maybe I don't think it's ever been told before.
You're absolutely right. I was on the road to the final, not the road to the Final Four, the road to Atlanta for the championship. So I was showcased on CBS. ESPN came to the house, and I was showcased on there talking about it. So I was on ESPN and CBS Sports for during the season last year. I'm glad it's gotten where it is. I'm sad of how it got there. It took a big tragedy for it to even get the light that it deserved. I'll be honest. I hope John Legend listens to your podcast, because he ghosted me. I reached out to John Legend on Twitter, because if we know about the movie Southside with Me is a movie about Barack Obama and Michelle Obama's first date before, when they were congresswomen and congressmen. And John Legend put his money up for that, and it was about the one day of their date. That movie took place in one day.
Yeah.
And I look at the story of Jack Trice, and I look at how someone has not casted me in a movie yet about it, but haven't actually made this yet about the story. The story sells itself. And a kid from a farm going to live with his aunt and uncle in Cleveland, his coach going to Iowa State facing what he had to face, being a martyr and dying from the injury sustained in that game, and then where we are, 75 years later, still dealing with it, 90 years still dealing with it, and it takes 97 years in order for there to be to start some change, and how his impact on that started. It could have been a catalyst for this. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I look at that, and I say that, I'm glad the traction is getting there, because it's a story that needs to be told. And who Jack is went out there, and that's where I started last year, because of everything that was going on last year, and it just was the right time, and the iron was hot to get his message, get his name out there, and make it about more than just football.
Oh, for sure. So, I live up here in the Twin Cities. I live in Minneapolis, which, is one thing for it to be kind of a meaningful thing that I think a lot of people up here didn't realize that story, even though the University of Minnesota, obviously, kind of a key part of that story, right? And so for a lot of people to not understand that, it was eye-opening to a lot of my friends that are Gopher fans, and learned that whole history. But then, like you said, what happened over the last year, and realizing that here we are, 97, 98 years removed from that event, and we still have these struggles that we have to understand. Certainly here in the city, that we think we've matured and we've grown and we've developed. There's still a whole lot to learn, and so to take something like that event and turn it into something that is a teachable moment that people can reflect on and understand the importance of, and still apply it to what is going on today, for sure.
Yeah, and I thought it might have got more traction, honestly, about 12 years ago. I think we played the Insight.com Bowl, and that was in 2009 against Minnesota. I was at the game.
I was at a bar here in Minneapolis, shouting really loudly, obnoxiously.
Yeah, I was there because that was New Year's Eve. So everybody was just still in shorts and Iowa State gear, right around the area. They blocked off the streets. But, as people were leaving, they were chanting, "Jack's ghost has been revenged." Mm-hmm. So they were talking about that, because that game was against Minnesota. And it just happened to be like, hey, we avenged Jack by winning against you today. And that was kind of the sentiment back there in 2009. I think that's when it was. But yeah, that was, why it should have got traction back then. It didn't. But now it's getting it now.
Well, it's a shame that something like George Floyd's death or whatever needs to happen in order for more of these things to come to light. And now all of a sudden it's the hot topic to want to look at. That's unfortunate for me. I think a good example is Juneteenth. I'll be completely honest in that I had no idea what that was until last year. And that's just not right. And I think there's if we want to get deep into it, we're seeing these laws now being passed that schools now shouldn't be teaching certain aspects of history because it's embarrassing. And we're going to lose that. We would never know some of those things without being able to do that. And that's just a terrible thing that we're going to try to sweep that under the rug.
You're 100% right. And my personal opinion is you can't erase history. What happened. The Confederate flag was there. The statues of these leaders that they're trying to take down, the names of these schools, they're there. But Juneteenth is also there. Black people are also there. And so teaching all the history, but not selective on the history. And that's what we've been taught growing up, is the selective part of history. I think about Black History Month, and when I lived in Iowa, and even a few years after, kids would call in to learn more about Jack Trice. And I was featured on a lot of kids' videos for Black History Month about Jack Trice in Iowa. Kids called me all the time. The athletic department gave my number out like it was candy to kids. And I appreciate them for me to be able to teach some kids. And one of the kids almost made it to like the finals in DC with the story that she did. And I wish I still kept in contact with some of those kids, but you do think about it. It took that tragedy for this light to come, but this has always been a part of history, and we have to teach it all. And it's a lot of people that just don't. Iowa people are so different. Y'all are not nosy. Y'all are. If you don't know somebody, you want to know somebody, and that's right. The thing. Is like I would go to small towns like Tama. Now, I'm not gonna take Tama out of it. Cedar Rapids or Carroll, Iowa, and people would ask me like, "Hey, who are you?" I'm like, "I'm George. I'm with this person." They're like, "Oh, well, we've never seen you around here before. So what's your story?" And it's like they're not. They just want to know. They want to talk, and people just don't talk and learn. And so when you have these events that happen, and for people to want to learn and want to talk and want to feel encouraged to buy these things, you gotta have those conversations. And it takes everything that makes history up. We are not Asian Americans because we were here from the beginning. And you think about an Asian American, someone who is not born in the United States comes and gets their green card. They are now whatever they are - American because they've now become part of our society, but they're not from here. Yeah. And I think that it's, you can't take Black history and say it's separate. It's just, it's weaved in between all of history.
It's history, but there's a lot that like we haven't been taught, right? So you talk about, I don't know what your experience was growing up in Ohio. I can certainly tell you growing up in Iowa, Black history was Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, but it wasn't the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921, right? It wasn't. I had no idea about Black Wall Street until
right.
I was well out of college, and yeah, like I said, Tulsa Race Massacre 1921, so 2 years before, Jack was killed on the field. Like, yeah, we're coming up on 100 years, but it also isn't that long ago. And so for us to be not taught these things and for people to be afraid to teach these things going forward is just puzzling to me.
My opinion is like you teach the easy stuff in school. You teach the stuff that sheds a good picture of our dominance of the USA being the number one country, being a strong nation. Mm-hmm. You always tout that, just like in your family, you don't tout that uncle that's always drunk at the barbecue. I do sometimes because he's funny. But
I was gonna say that's Chris actually.
That was last week. That was last episode. We did that last episode with my family.
Yeah, you don't always tout that the downside of the family. Mm-hmm. You want to keep that in private doors. And right. I think that's where the curriculum of school has been taught. And that's why you don't get that unless you take a Black history course. And I'll tell you, you're not the only one. I'm not from Texas. So Juneteenth was not big to me growing up. I didn't know much about it until I started working really for Nationwide and started learning more about, we have a San Antonio office, and learning about, the group. I'm the president of one of our associate resource groups for Black associates at Nationwide. And I learned about it like 12, 13 years ago. And I've been with Nationwide 15 years. And that's the thing, is that it's not taught in our homes either. Because unless your parents are part of that historic.
Oh, George, I think we lost your audio. We got you now?
No. You have me now?
Okay, there we go.
All right. Sorry, I don't know what happened. I think maybe I hit a button or something.
Oh no, I'm sure you were making a very salient point, and it
so I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna point like this, and just rewind it, and then I'm just gonna point.
Okay, right. Perfect.
Okay, cool. But what I was saying is that we don't talk about that either when you think about what is taught in the home, unless you really are part of like teaching history. Our parents didn't know much about that either, and didn't teach much of that in the home. Like they may have assumed growing up that we were taught that in school because that's what school was for, but they didn't think they had to. But then growing up now, you have to teach your kids about these things, because my son can read, and he's 8 years old, and he sees Black Lives Matter. He can read. What is Black Lives Matter, Daddy? Like, what does that mean? And so having to explain all this stuff to the kids now, I'm glad it's getting there.
Yeah, for sure. I can remember being in history class, and sometimes we were going through lessons or whatever, and I would think to myself, I not that it's slanted, but I wonder what World War II, I wonder what they teach about World War II in Japan, right? What is their version of their historical presence and what happened there? Were they the bad guys, or is it written in a way that they attacked Pearl Harbor because of certain provocations that the United States did that we may not know that actually may have happened? I don't know for sure. I'm just using that as an example. So all those things, everything that we learn here is twisted and sent to us in a certain way, and that you have to be able to look through that and be able to research and understand all aspects of certain issues. Does that make sense?
It does, but we're lazy.
Oh yeah. Well,
when you really think about it, I mean, if something's important to you, this is going to be one of the controversial topic, I'll say.
That's all right.
Bill Cosby or R. Kelly, they do some dumb, crazy stuff.
Right.
Good music, a good actor, they do some dumb stuff. Their things have been brought into light. If you think about other actors or entertainers that their business is not put out in the streets, or you think about, you don't know everything about me. I could have a dark past. I don't, but I could. But we don't know that. And until we have that conversation to see what all those things are linking us, we are never going to know the full truth. So we pick and prod at these certain things to bring certain things to light, but it's never going to be the 100% picture. And until we start to dig in and try to find out, well, you say this happened, but there's always three sides. Let me dig in a little bit better, because you could think that, like I used to think Bob Saget was the holiest person in the world. That's the dad from Full House. Right. And I saw him in stand-up. I said, oh, this dude is crazy. Like, that is not Bob Saget from Full House. He's hilarious, but it's not Bob Saget. You don't know, because that's the version of him that we see from the outside. Sure. And then other people see Bob Saget, the stand-up comedian, and they're going to have different views based on it and say, oh, that Full House dude is not really him. Or they can say, oh, the stand-up comedy is not really him because he's just doing that to get more money. He's trying to make fun of all the cuss work. Like, so you just have to look at it and look at it from a whole bunch of different sides to kind of really put it all together to see what is true and what is not.
It's just like anything else. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I still, George, I have to give you credit, because I did not think that we could tie critical race theory to Bob Saget so seamlessly.
Hey, you never know what you're going to get when you get me on the camera and on the mic. You never know what you're going to get. If you would have known me in college or high school, you just don't know.
Oh, all right. Man.
I'm that wild card. That's why I say, what's off the table? I got that wild card.
There's nothing off the table here.
I think that's great. And I think the broader point there is that there are things that we miss growing up, because maybe the curriculum just has, I don't even want to say that it has an explicit agenda, but just because you teach what you were taught, right? And so I don't think, if you don't question what you were taught, you don't question what you're teaching.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so I think that becomes like a self-perpetuating, I think about the First Nations people in this country, and how we talk about the rise of our nation and the history of our country, and that goes back 250 years. It doesn't go back, 400, 500 years, 600 years. There's a larger, broader history of people that were in this country that we're completely missing out on. But the lens and what we speak through is kind of what we teach forward. Yeah. And so it's hard, I guess. I think I guess why people don't understand it, but it's still frustrating that they don't take the time. But I also know that I'm lazy.
People got to think. I'll do one more analogy. My favorite Marvel movie when I'm having a bad day. Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok, I think, is the best Marvel movie ever. Starts off with Thor in a cage. Oh no, Thor's in a cage. Like it's you think about that, but my point is, you get to the point where, spoiler alert for people that haven't seen Thor Ragnarok. So
if you haven't, shame on you.
Sister comes and takes over Asgard, and she talks about how Odin was proud of what he had, but not how he got it. And she looks up at the ceiling, and it's this new painting of the Kumbaya, and she throws her swords up to knock that down to show what really went on and what was covered up. And it shows the destruction, and it shows the bad and the good. It shows everything there, but you try to cover it up to not evoke, panic in people or fear in people. And I think that's kind of where some of our system goes to. They try to put the fluff filter on. Everybody's using that Instagram filter to make it look better than it actually is. But I got a mole right here. I can't cover it up. It's there. And so they try to cover that imperfection up with something that's going to distract you from the truth, or from digging in any further to say, oh, I accept that, because that's what I've been taught for the past 20 years. I haven't gone back 25 years.
So do you think that's why, you mentioned earlier that you would have thought that Jack's legacy and story would have been taught earlier? Do you think part of why it wasn't told more until here recently is just the discomfort of it all?
Yeah, race is always uncomfortable. To talk about race is one of the most uncomfortable things you can do. It's a very uncomfortable conversation because people don't take questioning out of innocence. They don't take it out of innocence. I did my DNA. Before I did my DNA, I knew my family is from slaves. Trice is not a Black, historically African last name. And so I'm 25% in my DNA. 25% of my DNA is not from Africa. From Cornwall, UK, and the Netherlands. That's where they migrated, from Cornwall, UK. So that's where that part comes from. Jack Trice was a son of slaves. So you think about that. You think about when you talk about race, and you talk about, again, how you got somewhere and on the backs of something. There was no cover up there. They just didn't talk about it because, if you have, now you're going to talk about the 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 dentists recommend this. Jack was that 10. It was 9 out of 10. Didn't look like Jack. So we're going to talk about the other 9 out of 10. But give the man his props, because he left it all out there on the field for your school, and at a time when, now athletes are fighting for pay and equal pay, and your likeness, get me paid for my likeness on the NCAA game. He wasn't getting any of that. He was working to become, to do animal husbandry, to go back down south and teach slaves how to ex-slaves how to be sharecroppers. I know he had a different vision of family, community, and self of what he wanted to do. And so when you want to talk about race, it's going to be a hard conversation, because how do you approach it? I had a guy teach me in an efficacy class for professionals of color at Nationwide. And he talked about, he was bald, but then he talked about when he was in college, he had hair. And he talked about him having an afro. And one of the girls at the mailroom asked to touch his hair. And he looked at her and he said, sure, you can touch my hair. He had an afro. So she touched his hair, like, oh, it's an afro. She'd never seen one. Had he been rude to her and said, why do you want to touch my hair? That's just rude to ask me to touch my hair. She might have been turned off to talk to any Black person and afraid to talk to a Black person. Or that if that was an Asian person, they would have been afraid. So by him being open and saying, yes, you're inquisitive. You're not like being rude. Here, touch my hair. Be comfortable with me. And if that's going to make you comfortable, let's have that discussion about it after you touch my hair. But we got to have those conversations. And, it wasn't the right time. Iowa State was a pioneer in being the first and only school Division I football program to have a stadium named after a Black person. That was there. They've always done stuff behind the scenes with Jack Trice and his name. And 13 with the throwback jerseys with Nike. They started doing that back in the day. The Jack Trice Club. They've done these things, and they've always supported him and his legacy. But they have a new platform and a new responsibility now because the students fought for that for so long to get us to where we are. The events of 2020 helped to catalyze this, and we got to bring all that together. And Iowa State, it has to hit the 2023 year with a bang. And I have a meeting tomorrow with I'm on the commemorative committee working on things for 2023. So please stay tuned for some things that are becoming soon. I can't reveal those because they'll probably kick me off the panel. But there's a lot of things coming in 2023 that we're doing to commemorate that. And, I'm going to be doing some things with East Tech High School this coming year, because this would have been Jack's senior year, him graduating next year. So East Tech High School up in Cleveland, I'm going to be working with some students there to help them learn about Iowa State, maybe help some of them go to Iowa State.
Well, I think to Tim's point earlier, with the team itself and the football program itself being at the highest levels that it's been ever, there's much more eyeballs on that. And they have, I think, a bigger responsibility now to do that story justice and to not just do it justice, but to promote it even more, because this is the platform and the chance to do that. There's no better chance now than in the next few years.
There's not, and it can't just be the 5-word sentence that they talk about at every game. Oh, right. Welcome to Iowa State, Jack Trice Stadium, the only stadium named after. Okay, let's get to the game. It's not Iowa State doing that. It's the media doing that, but they have to make that story come to life every year to get it traction. And you're absolutely right. And especially, we're poised to be very good in football this year. And if they expand it, we have an even better shot if they expand it to 12 teams like they've been talking about. That gives us even more opportunities to get up there and compete for that national championship. But, with our platform, with a coach like Matt Campbell, and him being as involved in the community and with the Iowa State legacy and Iowa State as it is, it's going to be great this year.
Oh, and you imagine the eyeballs of a home first round playoff game in Jack Trice Stadium in December, right? I mean, the optics of that and how amazing that would be. That would be pretty special.
Yeah. No, that would be phenomenal. I'd be there. I mean, I'm going to 3 games this year for sure, and I'm trying to. I've never been to Oklahoma, so I'm trying to get that down to Oklahoma for that game because I've never been. But I'm 3 hours from West Virginia, so I'll be in West Virginia. I'll be back for the Iowa State game, and of course I'm going to be in Vegas. Why not?
Okay, well now I'll be in Vegas too, so we may have to hook up.
Hey, I'll be there from Thursday to Monday. We're going to definitely have a drink. We're going to get each other's number and drink.
All right, there you go. That's what I want to hear.
So George, I wanted to take a second. I wanted to read the letter that Jack wrote. I think there's a lot of implications about this that we've talked about having conversations. I think there's a lot, some of the great things that Matt Campbell is doing with the team about, giving their all. I think there's a whole lot of implications going on, but I took some time to read this earlier today and I felt impacted in a couple different ways. So I wanted to take a second. It starts with, to whom it may concern, my thoughts just before the first real college game of my life, the honor of my race, family, and self are at stake. Everyone is expecting me to do big things. I will. My body and soul are to be thrown recklessly about on the field tomorrow. Every time the ball is snapped, I'll be trying to do more than my part. On all defensive plays, I must break through the opponent's line and stop the play in their territory. Beware of mass interference. Fight low with your eyes open and towards the play. Roll block the interference. Watch out for crossbucks and reverse end runs. Be on your toes every minute if you expect to make good. So I read that, and obviously there's a lot of implications about football, right? And about being a player and him feeling a lot of pressure to do everything he can to be the best player. But there's also just kind of a lot of general kind of life advice in there too about, fight low with your eyes open towards the play. My whole body and soul are about to be thrown about recklessly. I think there's something else kind of in that letter. Um, what when like the first time you read that letter, what were you feeling?
Race, family, and self. So I heard the story before I read the letter.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you hear a story about, the trek, that what it took to get there to Minnesota, where he couldn't ride on the same train car,
Mm-hmm.
he couldn't eat in the same restaurant, stay in the same hotel because of that time, that era. Um, and for him to sit there in his room by himself, probably in like a shack type of a hotel with lower accommodations. And you think about, for a person of that age to write something like that, for that to be on the mind of a young person back in that day, um, it was, again, the feelings, the emotions you have to play your real first game, whether it's college, high school, junior high, little pee-wee, whatever. You're going out there and you're nervous, and a lot of eyes are on you. And when you're the only black person, when you have X, Y, and Z against you, um, that is really, where you feel what he's feeling as a human. Whenever you're about to do something that you've never done before, and you read that letter, take out the race, family, and self if you want to, but everything else hits everybody. And I think that's just profound, again, for a young person to think that way, to write that, to know what he has to do. It goes back to what Black people still have to do to this day. We have to fight harder. We have to work twice as hard to get the same recognition. Um, and I don't like talking about Urban Meyer and the Ohio State, but working with Nationwide, we worked with his book, Above the Line, and we use it in a lot of different ways. But one thing he says is 4 to 6, A to B. A football play is 4 to 6 seconds average, and it goes from point A to point B. So that's what you got to give your all for them 4 to 6 seconds from point A to point B, and over and over and over again, looking at it that way and resetting. And that's what Jack was going out there looking at doing. I'm going to throw myself recklessly about the field. I got to do everything because I have to show them that I'm a human, for one, I'm a football player, for two, and that I'm a beast. And that was really, what that last part of it, without him saying it, was like, I'm the shit. Can I say that on? I already said it, so it's being recorded. Yeah, that's basically what he was saying. It was like, so,
Yeah.
And he had to, so, I mean, listening to that letter, I read it on ESPN. They filmed me, and I get emotional with it every time. Like, thinking about that, thinking about somebody preparing themselves that way. And then for Matt Campbell to have that read before every game, and basically it's like their tap out. Let's tap this out before we go. So it's deep.
Right. And like he starts it off with, to whom it may concern. Like, this is not a letter written to anyone in particular,
Mhm.
right? This is a letter written to anyone, right?
Yeah.
And and he finishes it with, be on your toes every minute if you expect to make good. It, like you said, it's amazing. So this was 1923. What is he? 19, 20 years
19
old at
years
this
old.
point,
Yeah.
right? 19 years old. I mean, you talked about uh your extended period in college. I can think about how long like the decisions I was making at 19. I wouldn't have been nearly as insightful or uh profound, or ready to tell the world, hey, I have to face up to this, and I'm going to face up to this, and you be ready for me because I'm going to be ready for what's coming.
Yeah. I mean, the short of it is, we've gotten weak as a society. Every generation is weaker than the prior. Um, I talk about, me eating dirt and drinking from the water hose and all that stuff, and getting a cut, getting back up, and going out there, putting a band-aid and running out back out, being outside till the street lights run on. Mom says, be home when the street lights go on. Okay, I'm on my bike. What you want for Christmas? My bike needs a new tire. I got to go outside. I got to play football. So you do that, you come home, and then you do what you got to do. And then you look at the kids these days, they're on their tablets, on their phones, having thumb wars on Twitter and talking on video games and things like that. We've gotten weak as society. When you woke up back in that time frame before he came to college, he was on a plantation. His family grew up on a plantation. He had work to do. When he was with his aunt and uncle, they had work to do to eat. They had to go, feed the animals. They had to go tend to the gardens. So he had so much more on his plate, to make good, as he says, and to do better and to be on his toes. So he had to be at that level. Whereas we've gotten comfortable because I have what to do. I know I have, as long as then back then it was so different. So for somebody at that age, yeah, they realized what they had to do and what was on their plate because of the time, and because of what their parents had to go through, and to make better and make it easier on them and their kin as they go forward.
Yeah, it was profound, I think, in that letter. As Tim read it again, I thought to myself a couple of times, it's almost as if it was written after what happened, because it was so predictive of what was going to happen. I think in there, when he talks about how he knows it's going to be hard, there's going to be obstacles. And the thing that struck for me is it just seemed to me like he had the weight of his entire family on him on that one game. And the pressure of that on a young man, and for him to break his collarbone on the second play of the game, I think is what I read, and then to continue to go in and play in a society where they probably didn't appreciate him, right? But for him to still sacrifice all that is just mind-boggling in today's standards.
Yeah. He was out there. The athletes of their day maybe are out there for themselves. They want to make a better life for them and their direct family. And what Jack was saying when he said race, it was more than his family. It was, because all lives were looked at them as different. Times have changed where athletes don't have to make a statement anymore. They have to get to that next level because there's so many people competing for that level, and they're not just playing for fun anymore. They're paying for, that next level contract, where back then he was playing for something different. The end goal was different. It wasn't the NFL contracts that he was playing for. It was for a sport that he loved, a sport that was helping him to get an education, to take things back. He was utilizing it as a true student athlete and using that platform as such.
Right. The honor of my race, family, and self are at stake. Everyone is expecting me to do big things. I will! Exclamation point. Right? Like, not only is he acknowledging that there are larger than life expectations, right? Like anybody who goes out for their first game feels a lot of pressure and feels a weight on their shoulder. I don't think he realizes maybe entirely the gravity of it, but I think he's clear that like what's happening is something that is unprecedented, and he's ready to prove everyone who believes in him, he's ready to prove right, and anyone who believes against him, he's ready to prove wrong, right? Like he's ready, and that's what's kind of amazing is there's that much weight on his shoulder, and he's acknowledging that, and he's just ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about in the middle, dead of winter, and you got to travel to a game, and let's say it's the dead of winter, you got to travel to a game, the plane runs out of gas, and you got to make emergency landing. Then you got to take a bus, and the bus runs out of a gas, and then you got to take a whole bunch of cars, teams and a whole bunch of cars to get to the stadium. You look at the path you go to do that, and I equate that to you look at the path that it took to get to that game. He had to fight through this, not being on the same train car, like I said, not being in the same hotel, not being with his team the night before, not being able to sit and have dinner with them and game plan and be a team, and to face all that and sit there by yourself. You have a lot of time to think, and so to sit there and be able to think and to be able to do that, way ahead of his time. Very mature young man.
And better, I think, than what I would be nowadays if I was shunned in a certain way and not able to have the same rights as everybody else or whatever. I would not. I don't know how to express it because I mean, let's be honest. I'm a white male. I'll never know in my life what it's like to be a black man, pulled over and maybe scared or not, or looked at a certain way, or being in an elevator and somebody taking 2 steps away because they don't. All those things. I don't have any idea. I know if I was just shunned with my coworkers and they didn't want, and I couldn't be around them to do certain things or whatever, I'd be angry and resentful. And for him to not even have that is beyond comprehension for me.
No, and now I'm gonna tell you, he was angry. Just like you would be angry, he was angry. You have to hide those things. Really, honestly, you have to hide them and suppress those feelings, because they're not going to do you any good. Anger is not going to do you any good. And so for him to think on a positive note, I think that's more so why he wrote that letter, is to not be angry about what was about to happen or what had happened to get him there. Because if you play angry, you play sloppy. Your mind's not there. You got to have an open mind, open heart when you're out there. Because if you're angry, something's going to go wrong. You're going to do something wrong. You're going to hurt somebody. You're going to do something you didn't mean to do. And then you are not going to be controlled. And so I think that really is where he had to write that letter to himself to suppress his anger of the times and what it took for him to get to this first game, because he went from Tennessee to Oberlin, Ohio to Ames, Iowa. He had a trek to get there over some years.
For sure.
Well, George, we've taken up a lot of your time. I do want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the Trice Legacy Foundation. Talk about what you guys have going on. Talk about the scholarship fund. Anything else that might be going on? Anything else you want to talk about? This is kind of your platform to tell us all about what the foundation is all about.
Yeah. So I will start it off about why I did it. We know why Jack wrote the letter, what he was about to go through that day. What was the catalyst for me was someone tagged me in a post, an ex Iowa State track star tagged me in a post on Facebook where someone was comparing Jack Trice and George Floyd. So this was March of last year. And I got in there and I started reading through it. And I typically don't read through all comments. And this one, because I was tagged in it for a purpose, like they were like, what are your thoughts? And I read through all the comments on there. And I told the person who started, I said, don't ever put my cousin's name in with George Floyd. And that's kind of how I started it. I was a little more polite than that. But what I was saying to him, what I explained to them in that post was, Jack went out there and gave his life knowing that he was facing an adversity that day when he went out on that field. He knew what he was going into when he went out there that day. And he was on there on a whole other path. He was doing it for his family, self, and his race. When George Floyd went out, he went out and was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and something tragic happened to him. So their deaths are not the same. Mm-hmm. And so as I thought about that and thought about this conversation, I said, I have to do something more than me. And so I started the John Jack Trice Scholarship Fund, and I had no clue what I was going to do with it. I was like, I'm going to go on Facebook. And I said, hey, I'm starting a foundation. Does anybody want to give me some money to start this fund, to start the scholarship fund? And I had to take those first funds and get an email address, get a website, get a logo. It took all the money that I got from that to kind of get started. And then I had some great donors that gave some money to me to help start this, because they were willing to help me and they had the funds and the means to do it. And I said, so quickly I got about $30,000 total overall, not what including what I spent, but $30,000. I'm like, okay. Then I started working. I'm not affiliated with Iowa State. What do I have to do to be more in sync with Iowa State, because I have this connection? And so to get a scholarship endowed, you need $50,000. And so I need to raise about $20,000 to $25,000 to be comfortable to get it endowed with the university and start to go down that process. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Iowa State was good for me. It was great for me to grow up in that environment and learn. And I want to support my cousin's name and make it hashtag it's more than just football. That's the hashtag I use. So if everyone more than just football. I was upset with Iowa State when they moved the statue back to the middle campus. When you go to an Iowa State football game, you're not going to the middle campus. So put it on that big hill in front of Vet Med so that when people are tailgating and drunk, at least they can see the statue there, while you're redoing the Jake building. But put it close so people can see it. And so I'm like, all right, I'm starting this. So I have that money set aside. But as I was doing it, I was contacting people, and I threw out some names to you all before we started the broadcast that I know from other universities, other businesses that have nothing to do with Iowa State. And so that's where the Trice Legacy Foundation came in. So I'm still funding the scholarship fund, and I'm trying to get that endowed with Iowa State and turn that over so that I can work to still make money with that. So people can go to Amazon Smile and put in Jack Trice Scholarship Fund, and it'll come up, and 0.5% of donations go there. Or you can put the Trice Legacy Foundation and the same thing, and it goes to the foundation. The foundation offers different scholarships to other universities. Still same criteria of people in need, but everybody doesn't want to go to Iowa State, and I have to understand that. Everybody doesn't want to give money to Iowa State, and I understand that. So if it's an HBCU, a trade school, someone needs computer money, someone needs internet money, whatever the case may be, the foundation houses the scholarship fund for Jack Trice and Iowa State, but it also will hold a general scholarship fund so that we can give people opportunities to go to other schools if they choose to, if they meet the same criteria. And in the fall, in September 10th, I'm doing a charity golf outing at River Valley Golf Course in Adel. I know the owners of that golf course from college. And so I'm doing the first event there where it's a 50-50 split. 50% of the proceeds will go to the Jack Trice Scholarship Fund, but 50% will go to the Legacy Foundation. The Legacy Foundation, again, houses leadership programs and mentorship programs. So I have some ex-Iowa Staters, and I'll throw their names out there. We have people like Reggie Hayward, James Reed, Marcus Pfizer, trying to get JJ Moses to call me back. JJ, call me back. I know you know me. Seneca, up opening a wing stop up there, but Seneca. You look at Stevie Johnson, he's out in California. Mike Nurse, Mike's Magic Meats up in New Jersey. These guys have done some things in their life for sports. And I have some non-sports people. I'm throwing the sports people out there because that's who you know. But I have some other Iowa State folks that are here that are doing businesses, that have done nonprofits, that have taught people to do different things, that are involved with me to help me to grow this and to provide these programs, because it's nothing worse than if you get a scholarship for $10,000 over 4 years and you have no support after that. There has to be a mentor. There has to be somebody holding your hand and say, let me help you continue all 4 years and finish. And you pay it back. The next scholarship award winner, you have to be their mentor and guide them through it. And so it pays it back over and over. And the more money we get, the more people we can give scholarships to and build that network. Not about generational wealth, but helping people to get to where they want to be and what they want to do. And as Jack's letter said, achieve big things. And on the website, johnjacktrice.org, it says, I will help students do big things. Will you? Because I'm going to do this. This has helped me connect with family that I had not talked to ever. There's some Trices that have come out the woodwork because of this, that they're like, oh, I used to go visit your mom. And I remember when you were like 6 months old, and I don't know these people, but I've met family through me building this, because this is not about me. I'm leading it, but I have a board of people from all over Iowa State in different capacities that are helping me to do this. But we want to just give back to people and support Iowa State and other schools. And so that's why we're having a charity event for the golf tournament the Friday before out at River Valley at 1:00. If you go to the website, johnjacktrice.org, a pop-up will come after about 3 seconds. You can click that link to either be a donor, be a volunteer, or to play golf. Looking for all that. I'll have some memorabilia signed by some of our Iowa Staters, and they'll be doing some silent auctions, but doing some fun things there in relation to sporting events. And I'm trying to throw a tailgate possibly for the Iowa State game as well. If I can get Seneca to get some chicken from Wingstop, that may be good. But if not, I'm gonna drag my smoker out and I'll be smoking some briskets and stuff like that. And we're just trying to raise money for this because I'm not getting paid. My board's not getting paid. We're all volunteering for this, and it's just something we're passionate about. And if I can help somebody to get to a better place and not do something stupid out on the street. I had the fortune of moving further and further out to the suburbs growing up because I was doing stupid stuff, getting in trouble. And my mom was like, "You are not going to embarrass me. We're moving." And I'm like, "Okay, sorry, Mom." So, I ended up going to an all white high school, 1,400 students, less than 100 Black students. Met some great people there, made some great acquaintances and great friends. But I had those opportunities. Some people don't get those opportunities. So I want to give back to that. And that's my whole purpose in this. It's not about me. It's about more than football. It's about Jack's name and trying to get that momentum going. And that's what I'm trying to do. Like all the stuff we're talking about happened last year, I'm trying to keep it going through 2022, his senior year of high school, through 2023, the anniversary of the 100th year anniversary of his death.
Well, just a couple things. First of all, I love the fact that it's tied to that mentorship and that those kids come back and then we'll help the next one and so on. That's a great idea that never would have occurred to me in something like that. On a personal note, I am part of a local chapter of the Knights of Columbus here in this small town that I live in Norwalk, just south of Des Moines. And I am the chairman of our scholarship fund that we put on here. And it's just simply a little dinner and dance that we do in a small auction. And on average, out of that little auction, we probably give anywhere from $15,000 to $1,000 scholarships. And the number one criteria that we weight most on is financial need. So you're kind of speaking my language. So I would just like to offer my services. I would love to join on with you and help you in any way if you have a spot. I'd be happy to do that, and we'll touch base after we the call here. And I would love to volunteer for the golf and working with you. So
I appreciate that.
I do have access to a Ragbri bus. If you're thinking about hooking up some kind of a tailgate for the Iowa State game, we have that bus reserved to come up there. So,
okay,
talk about that too. But
hey, I'm looking for all kinds of opportunity. I put a request in for Cy and a cheer squad to come to the golf event. I don't know if they're going to be busy or not, so I put it out there. And they have a website you can go out there. They can cheer us on as we're going out there hitting them horrible shots off the first tee.
Have you watched me golf? Is that what that was? I feel.
Yeah, I saw that on YouTube. I saw your video.
I feel attacked. I'm playing in a tournament this Saturday for a charity, and it's my wife who played a little bit, and then my daughter and her boyfriend who have never played a lick in their life, and somehow I'm playing with those two, so it'll be a complete shit show.
Yeah, hey, I want to see that one. Do you know Joe Albrecht? You know Joe Albrecht?
I know who he is. I don't know.
Okay, because he lives in Norwalk. Yeah, so that's why. Yeah. Yep. So I know.
He actually is a member of my church. I just have never met him.
Yep, I figured that. It's a small world.
Yeah.
Literally everyone I know apparently lives in Norwalk. I've slowly found that Chris and I know like 90% of the people Chris knows. So
yeah, Tim and I have never met, but we have 3 mutual friends.
Yeah.
Hold on, you all have never met in person?
No, we hooked up on the Tailgate Society about in August of last year, and we figured out that we were the 2 oldest guys on the entire team, so we let's do a podcast.
Hey, I like it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Listen, I always ask one question at the end of these. So what is your definition of success? And by that definition, who's the most successful person that you know?
Definition of success. My definition of success is really simple. And it's something that when I lead people or mentor people, it's always about doing one more than you did the day before. You took 10,000 steps that yesterday, take 10,001. But always try to be improving and taking that next step every single time. because I think that those little incremental wins are those wins. I don't have a person that I would say is about success, but I do always talk about Colin Powell and his definition of leadership. And he has a 2.5-minute video that I always show when I take over a new team as a manager or a leader. And he talks about leadership. And you know you're a good leader if your people follow you. It's just not out of curiosity. He talks about not showing that you're hungry, tired, or weak because your team will show they're hungry, tired, or weak. And you're a leader if they'll follow you around the deepest, darkest corner, if not just out of curiosity. And so I think that a person that's successful has a following of people that are going to trust them to lead them through it, no matter what's around that corner. And I don't see many people doing that today. You know your MLK, you know your Black history, you know that, you know a Colin Kaepernick. I don't know the gentleman's the football player that just came out he's the second openly gay football player. We don't talk about what Michael Sam. They haven't talked about Michael Sam. Michael Sam came out and he was the first, but he was a black guy. We're not gonna go there. But but this new guy is active. Yep. But you got to take steps and be successful in taking those steps. And so, I just think that anybody that is taking the steps to do better than they did the day before is a person of success in my life.
I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is very well spoken. I always believe that like good leaders rally people around a better future.
Yes. I mean, there's managers and there's leaders. Managers say, I have a task at hand. You have to do this task. I don't care who you are. I don't care anything about you. The leader shows you, hey, I'm in here with you. I've done that job and I know what it takes. And I'm here with you through this. And we're going to get through this together. I'm the leader. Follow the leader. And I'm not going to lead you astray.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about.
No, absolutely. Well, George, thank you very, very much. Is there a website you want to direct people to?
Yes. www.johnjacktrice.org. That is the website that you can find out about what we do. You can make donations. All donations are helpful, from $1 up, 50 cents up, whatever it is. That's where you can find it. We're still updating the website. Again, this is all happening during the pandemic. But johnjacktrice.org, you'll find information about the golf tournament. I'll have shirts. I'm going to be selling some polo shirts with the logo. That logo right there. I have polos for sale. That part of the proceeds, all the proceeds go to the foundation. Outside the cost of the shirts, but we're just trying to get the brand out there. I'm trying to get verified on Facebook. Follow us on Facebook at Trice Legacy, Instagram Trice Legacy. I need more followers so I can get it, the official badge. They won't give me the badge. I try every 30 days.
You gotta have 1,000 likes.
Something. Give me the badge. I need 1,000 likes. So from this broadcast, just tell everybody to hit the button. Just push the button. Give me a like.
Well, in the spirit of that, we talked a little bit before we started to record. As modest as we are and as small as we are, we're going to do a campaign in July. We're going to sell. We have all these old man strength sweatshirts and T-shirts and tank tops and so on. We have them in cardinal and gold. We do have them in black and yellow. We do have them in purple and yellow. But we're going to see who has the best fans. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a little contest. We're going to sell those shirts, and all the proceeds from those shirts are going to be spread out through 3 different charities. The first charity is going to be the Jack Trice Foundation, Legacy Foundation. The other one is going to be Cedar Bend Humane Society, which is in Cedar Falls up by you and I. And then the third one will be the University of Iowa's Children's Hospital. So whatever proceeds we get from those for the entire month of July, we will split those 3 ways, and we'll see if we can get you a donation.
I really appreciate the work that you're doing and appreciate the support. Without support from everybody, none of this stuff's going to be possible. So,
well, you were talking earlier how your wife gets mad at you because you stick something new in the corner or whatever. You realize you just now got me in trouble because I'm going to order one of those polos. And my wife, what the hell is in that? What the hell did you order now?
Yeah, I know.
Tell you right now, I may need a place to stay.
Yeah, I got my man cave for us, so we're good. We're good. You know, I'm hanging up my flag for September 2nd. I got my house divided. Iowa State flag to hang up because my wife is a Panther. So
she's all right.
Yeah,
as my wife says, my wife graduated from Iowa State, but as she says, I went to graduate school at UNI, so they get some of my alumni money too.
Well, excellent. George, thank you again very much for being a guest. So great to talk to you, get to know you a little bit more, learn a little bit more about the foundation as well. We will go ahead and tweet out a link to the Legacy Foundation website so that all of our listeners and followers can go ahead and check that out. Once again, this has been Old Man Strength, a podcast of the Tailgate Society. Please check out the Tailgate Society on the web at thetailgatesociety.com. A lot of great content from sports to pop culture to news to whatever. Podcasts, articles. I think Chris and I might do a YouTube thing here at some point. We'll see what's going on, but please go ahead and check us out there. Check out our sponsor, Deadeye Barbecue at deadeyebbq.com. Chris, is there anything else you want to add before we sign off?
I mean, other than the fact that we clearly have a face for radio, we're going to do a YouTube show at some point. So I'm sure the subscriptions will skyrocket on that.
Yeah, George, you can expect to get an invite back when we get that launched as well. So
hey, I'm ready. I am ready.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, once again, I am Tim Johnson, joined by Chris Shipley with our special guest, George Trice, and we will see you next time.
I don't want to get on the bandwagon. I'll burn that wagon down and join the band. Traveling troubadours, terrorizing street corners just to try to get some supper in our hands. Now I waited all my life to get this off my chest, scream bloody murder until someone understands that it ain't about the money, the drugs, or the women. I make this noise just because I can. And we'll all join in to that original sin.